Shake.
Hi, I'm Anca, and this is the place to be to hear about the latest tech trends in healthcare. Today, we're going to tell the story of one of the most powerful scientific breakthroughs of the 21st century. A story about how artificial intelligence stepped out of the lab and into the core of biology, solving a puzzle that has stumped scientists for over 50 years. This is the untold story of AlphaFold. Welcome into the MetaHealth. First, let's start with the basics. Protein folding. Proteins are one of the most important components of our organisms. They're responsible for digesting food, healing wounds, defending against viruses, and so much more. But there's a twist. Each protein only works if it's folded into a very specific 3D shape. Proteins start out as long chains of molecules called amino acids. But to work properly, they need to fold into precise 3D shapes. And predicting what that shape will be, just from the amino acid sequence, is incredibly hard. There are more possible ways to fold a protein than atoms in the universe. This problem has been called one of biology's greatest mysteries. And despite decades of work, traditional science couldn't crack it. That's where our story begins. In 2010, DeepMind was founded in London by Demis Hassabis, a former child chess prodigy and neuroscientist, Shane Legg, a machine learning expert, and Mustafa Suleiman, a policy advisor and entrepreneur. The trio wanted to create a company that could help develop artificial general intelligence, AI that could learn any intellectual task a human could. Their early breakthroughs came in the form of game-playing AIs. One of their first major successes was using deep learning to teach an AI how to play Atari games directly from the screen, a major feature at the time. But the project that truly put DeepMind on the global map was AlphaGo. Released in 2016, AlphaGo was the first AI to beat a world champion at the ancient board game Go, an achievement previously thought to be a decade away. AlphaGo combined deep neural networks with reinforcement learning and tree search, showcasing the kind of strategic, abstract thinking that many believed only humans were capable of. The success caught the attention of Google, which acquired DeepMind in 2014 for a reported $500 million. As part of Alphabet, DeepMind retained its autonomy, allowing the team to pursue ambitious long-term projects with access to Google's immense computing power and data resources. By 2016, with AlphaGo's success behind them, DeepMind turned to a new challenge. Could the same kind of cutting-edge AI solve one of the greatest unsolved problems in biology? Protein folding? So they formed a team led by John Jumper, a physicist turned AI researcher, and started working toward one goal. Can AI predict how a protein folds accurately and reliably? To test themselves, they entered a scientific competition called CASP. It stands for the Critical Assessment of Structure Prediction. Think of it like the Olympics for protein folding. Every 2 years, teams try to predict the shape of proteins that have just been discovered in labs. But they haven't been made public yet. It's a blind test and is the gold standard for judging protein prediction methods. In 2018, DeepMind entered with a system called AlphaFold, and they won. The 2018 version of AlphaFold used deep learning to predict how close different parts of a protein would be to each other. Instead of directly predicting the final shape, it predicted distance maps, like a heat map showing how near or far amino acids should be. Then, it used physics-inspired techniques to build a 3D model that best fit those distances. It was a leap forward, but still not perfect. Think of it like a prototype that works better than anyone expected, but still needs refining. Encouraged by their win, the DeepMind team went back to work. Now fast forward to 2020, AlphaFold 2 was unveiled at CASP 14. And this time, it didn't just win, it crushed the competition. AlphaFold 2 was getting predictions with an accuracy comparable to real lab techniques like X-ray crystallography or cryo-electron microscopy. In many cases, it could predict the exact shape of a protein down to the atomic level. So how do they do this? First, it's important to understand the type of AI used here. AlphaFold does not use reinforcement learning like some of DeepMind's other projects, such as AlphaGo. Instead, it relies on supervised deep learning. This means it learns by example. Scientists gave it thousands of known protein sequences along with their actual 3D structures. So the AI could learn the relationships between a sequence and its final shape. At the core of AlphaFold is a system called a transformer, a kind of neural network architecture also used in language models like ChatGPT. But instead of learning grammar and vocabulary, AlphaFold's transformer learns the grammar of biology, how different amino acids relate and integrate in a folded protein. Here's how it works in very simple terms. Imagine you give the AI a recipe, the amino acid sequence. But instead of giving it instructions for just one dish, you also show it thousands of similar recipes from across the world, how different chefs in different places have combined these ingredients. The AI starts to notice patterns. When ingredient A is present, ingredient B often shows up too. These recurring pairings give the AI clues about which amino acids tend to stick together in the final 3D structure. This is how AlphaFold uses evolutionary information. By comparing many sequences across species, it sees which parts of the protein tend to change together and assumes those parts are likely to be physically close in folded shape. Then, AlphaFold looks at the recipe and begins to guess how to plate the dish, except in this case, it's predicting the 3D shape the protein will take. It does this by repeatedly adjusting its guess, checking if certain amino acids should be closer together or further apart based on patterns it has learned. What makes AlphaFold 2 special is that it doesn't break the task into separate pieces, like one part guessing which amino acids are close together and then another part building a 3D model afterward. Instead, it does everything at once in a single unified system. Think of it like cooking a dish where you keep tasting and adjusting as you go rather than preparing each part separately and hoping they work well together in the end. The AI looks at the structure of amino acid sequences and evolutionary relationships, starts forming a rough 3D structure, checks how well it pieces together, and continuously refines it, all within one ongoing process. It runs through the process over and over, refining the shape each time until it reaches a final prediction that matches what would be seen in the lab. And it does this with astonishing accuracy, often in just a few minutes. The result? A protein folding system that works with stunning accuracy. So when the Cas14 results were announced, some researchers were speechless. One scientist said that AlphaFold solved in half an hour what he'd been working on for 10 years. Another called it a miracle, but this wasn't magic. It was careful engineering grounded in biology and powered by AI. And in July 2021, DeepMind made a historic move. They released AlphaFold's predictions for the entire human proteome. More than 20,000 proteins for free. And they released predictions for hundreds of millions of more proteins. Now any researcher in the world can look up a protein structure in seconds. That's like giving every biologist a microscope that can see molecules. So AlphaFold is already helping to accelerate research across medicine, agriculture, and environmental science. Scientists are using it to understand diseases, discover new drugs, and even create enzymes to break down plastic waste. Pharmaceutical companies are using AlphaFold predictions to model how drugs interact with their targets, Universities are using it to design new proteins for therapies. It's even helping in the fight against malaria and antibiotic resistance. And because it's open access, a student in a small lab has the same power as a researcher in a big biotech firm. That is what true scientific democratization looks like. Of course, AlphaFold isn't perfect yet. It struggles with complex proteins where multiple proteins interact and with proteins that don't have a fixed structure. But DeepMind and others are already working on those problems. The next frontier, probably modeling how proteins interact with small molecules like drugs. Predicting how a medicine fits into a protein's pocket could accelerate drug discovery by years. And beyond medicine, the AI techniques behind AlphaFold are now inspiring work in chemistry, material science, and even neuroscience. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you soon for another tech adventure in healthcare.